Hi, everybody. This is Bob Cruz, President of Checkpoint Technologies. We are going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar, but first and foremost, I want to thank all of you very much for joining us. So today's webinar is Collaborative Mobile Application Testing Strategies. And again, my name is Bob Cruz, and I'm joined by Dean Carvin. I have been in IT for about 26 years now. Started off as an IT DB2 IBM COBOL developer many years ago, and evolved into quality assurance and quality control with a specific area of expertise in automated testing. And I'm very pleased to introduce our other speaker today, Dean Carvin.
Hello, my name is Dean Carvin. I'm the Director of Professional Services for Checkpoint Technologies, and I've been in the QA industry for about 16 years now. Focused most of my career around the HP set of tools, UFT, load runner, and API testing, GUI testing, that sort of thing. So I'll be presenting later on in the webinar. Back to you, Bob.
Great, thanks, Dean. So just a little bit about Checkpoint Technologies. We started in January of 2003. That's when we incorporated. We're headquartered in sunny Tampa, Florida. And our area of expertise is all around the quality assurance and quality control areas, specifically when it comes to functional, performance, and application security testing. We are an HP Software Gold Partner, HP Authorized Software Support Partner, and an HP Certified Training Partner. We actually started off in 2003 as a Mercury Interactive Partner. So I'm sure all of you in the audience that have utilized Quick Test Pro, if you remember WinRunner, and Quality Center used to be Test Director, I'm sure you remember Mercury. We are also very proud to be a Mobile Labs partner, a turnkey partner, Zephyr partner, and QAI, Quality Assurance Institute training partner. Because again, besides having specific expertise in different solutions that you utilize for software testing, we also have a large area just in quality assurance. So we'll do manual testing, test case design, requirements writing, and things along that line. A little bit about the webinar. I just wanted to show you the control panel because Dean and I, we definitely encourage questions. We are going to be doing our very best to get to all of your questions that you ask. Any that we don't get to, we will be responding to the questions and emailing those out to the entire audience. And by the way, today's webinar is being recorded. So we're going to record this, and then if not today, then tomorrow we will send out the recorded webinar out to all of you that have joined us today. So what you see on the screen is the control panel. Definitely want to point out the area where you can type in your questions. And as I mentioned, Dean and I will be doing our very best to get to those today. So today's agenda, we are going to be going over different challenges with mobile testing. I'm sure something all of you can relate to. We will be discussing briefly mobile testing approaches, test planning strategies when it comes to mobile application. And then we're going to turn it over to Dean, where he will zero in on some strategic solutions and the integration and collaboration you can utilize with those solutions, including HP ALM, Application Lifecycle Management, HP UFT, Unified Functional Testing. We'll be talking about HP Mobile Center, as well as the Mobile Lab solutions. And then Dean will be sharing some of his significant expertise on mobile application test automation. So the first thing that we would really like to do is take a quick poll of the audience. What we'd like to know is, where is your organization at? So if you take a look at the choices, basically perhaps your organization is at the point where it's asking, what is mobile? Otherwise, they might be, you might know that you have mobile something, you've got a concern about it, but it's not a primary focus. Then there's mobile first, where you've got a number of different environments and applications, but your mobile applications are the top priority, or mobile everything. That is strictly what it is that your organization focuses on. So if you could just take a moment and take a look at that poll. So interesting, Dean. So the response that we've got here is on the poll questions. We've got the audience showing that approximately 8% of our audience, their organization states what is mobile. Then we've got 75% mobile something. 17% is mobile first and 0% mobile everything. So by far, mobile something where they're concerned about it, but it's not necessarily the top priority. So that comes in at 75%. Does that surprise you, Dean?
No, it really doesn't, Bob, because we see that a lot. A lot of companies are contacting us and talking about, okay, we have this environment, we have a mobile app, now what do we do with it? We have a lot of customers asking for a mobile app. How do we test it? How do we make that approach? So that's kind of the learning curve now, and companies, going into the industry and developing a more mature solution to mobile application testing. So no, that makes complete sense.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we found, because Checkpoint Technologies, we've done a number of webinars in the past 18 months when it comes to mobile application testing. And, we've spoken at a number of different conferences, and we found this number growing. I mean, I remember when it was close to 50% in one of our audiences where they were asking, what is mobile? And a very small percentage was mobile something. So we see that growing very rapidly. So what I'd like to share with the audience right now with all of you would be the challenges of mobile applications. So just, very quickly, another poll. When it comes to mobile application testing, what is your organization's biggest challenge? So if the audience could just take a moment and respond to that poll. All right, fantastic. So when we look at the response to the poll question on do not have the right tools to test, that came in at 19%. 23% indicate that they do not have the devices readily available. So that is considered by many to be their biggest challenge. Another 23% indicated do not have the right testing process methodologies. The largest by far is 27%, no mobile testing experts available. And it's funny, when we think about that for just a moment, 27% no mobile testing experts available. So mobile applications in the scheme, in the lifeline, if you will, of IT is still relatively new. I mean, I'm sure all of us in the audience can remember that just a few years ago, we did not have mobile applications. So again, something new. And then 8% said do not have enough time to test. And that seems to be true regardless of the environment. So thank you to the audience. Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
If I may say, I would suspect if you could select, if the audience could select multiple options, many would have selected 2 or 3 of those, if not all of those, because it's not just one problem organizations face, it's a myriad of issues and challenges coming into mobile testing.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point, Dean. So, in a survey conducted by World Quality Report in 2012-2013, when they asked why is mobile app testing a challenge, and enterprises were surveyed in 9 different industries, and they reported their top problems as do not have the right tools and do not have the right devices. And, one thing that Dean and I can absolutely relate to, we both love test automation, but we know that it's not the end-all, be-all. It's not going to solve all of your problems. So simply adding an automation tool to an existing framework is not going to solve these two challenges for you. And then if you look at some of the other challenges that World Quality Report had included in their survey was do not have the right testing process method, no mobile testing experts available. So the top two, though, again, was not having the right tools, not having the right devices, and for many of those customers, solving challenges number 1 and 2 would help alleviate and address many of the remaining problems. So one thing I want to share with the audience is in a lot of the presentations and classes that I give, the subject of emulation versus simulation always comes up. Now, first of all, the most ideal situation is for you to be testing, to be performing your verification and validation on real-world devices. If you don't have that option, and you have to set up some kind of a lab, it is very important to understand the difference between emulation and simulation. So emulation is much more complex. It emulates, so in other words, it duplicates exactly real mobile device software, hardware, and the operating system. So it allows you to test and debug the application. Again, that system behaves exactly like whatever it is you're emulating. Much more expensive and time-consuming to set up. A lot of organizations utilize simulation. So it's a less complex application. It simulates the internal behavior of the device, but it doesn't emulate the hardware, and it does not work over the real operating system. So simulation, obviously, it's similar to what it is that you're trying to duplicate. So a great example is, you see the upside down airplane there. A great example is a flight simulator. So it's disconnected from reality, lets you fly that plane upside down without breaking anything, but it does let you break the rules. But again, the best case scenario is testing on real world devices. If we take a close look at the challenges, so on this slide, the main point here is that there's a huge shared set of challenges among manual testing and automated testing. And those challenges include having the right devices, finding the devices, security exposures, purchasing restrictions, overnight delivery. So how do you manage the devices as well as all of the testing processes? Because when it comes to mobile application testing, you've got to be thinking about your devices. You've got to be thinking about how you're going to manage the different processes with the developers, with the mobile applications themselves, as well as your entire testing process. In all of these, you might be thinking about things such as security. You might be thinking about visibility. So for the different, when it comes to testing, you want to know how was it tested, when was it tested, for how long. And then, of course, all of these different devices, developers, mobile applications, and testing, you've got to think about the different processes used within each. And when it comes to mobile applications and mobile devices, it is very, very easy to be overwhelmed. So as of early 2014, there were 2,582 device types running. And that was with 106 different operating system versions, services worldwide, and 691 different carriers worldwide. So if your goal is to test every condition, every scenario possible, then every test case would be executed. That would be 189,121,172 times. So with those kind of numbers, you can see why it's so easy to be overwhelmed. So let's do one more poll, and this is our last one. So given the following mobile brands, what would be your company's first priority for testing? All right, fantastic. So we've got some interesting results in. So in regard to which mobile brand your company would prioritize as being the first to test, 71% came in as Apple. Nothing really all that surprising. 3% RIM or BlackBerry, 3% HTC, 0% Nokia, and 24% Samsung. So Dean, what are your thoughts on that?
It actually makes sense, Bob. Apple's kind of the market leader in the industry for sure as far as devices go, so that makes complete sense. And I myself have a Samsung. I know a lot of people that do, so no, that's not surprising at all, actually.
So I got to be honest with everybody. That's a little bit of a trick question. What we probably should have done is given one other choice, and that other choice would be it depends. Because when we take a look at worldwide, the different phone manufacturers and the different phones used, take a look at this slide and you'll notice that Android is a dominant operating system in the world. Samsung is the most popular in 92 of 230 countries. But take a look at the last bullet. So Apple is not necessarily the most popular worldwide. So you'll see that Apple and Nokia each are the most popular in 60 plus countries out of 230 throughout the world. But if you were, and this is where you need to take a look at what's going on in the market, because let's say that you had an application which was going to be predominantly used in India. Apple is utilized less than 2% over in India. So Apple is not the leading brand. By far, Nokia is at 44%. Even in Russia, Nokia is the market leader with 20%. Apple comes in second at 17%. So when you're thinking about your test plan and how you're going to prioritize the testing, it's very important that you take into consideration what is going on in the market. You've got to take a look at the big picture. So remember, testing effort is a project regardless of challenges, or perhaps better to say that especially due to the challenges. So it requires a very strategic approach. So one of the things we strongly endorse when trying to make a test plan for mobile applications is make sure that your testers are familiar with the mobile ecosystem. So the mobile ecosystem is made up of services, applications, application frameworks, platform and operating systems, devices, manufacturers, networks, and operators. So the mobile ecosystem as a whole explores trends, companies, and statistics at the center of the mobile landscape. So this is something that it's very beneficial for testers to know, especially if they're involved in creating the test plan. Make sure that they know and are familiar with the different types of mobile applications, that they understand what, whether or not it's just a true web application that they're viewing on their mobile device. Is it a native application? So a native application, it's installed on the device through an app store. Or is it a hybrid application where it's part native application and part web application? So a hybrid app is just like a native app. It gets obtained from an app store, and it can take advantage of the many device features available. But like web apps, it relies on HTML being rendered in a browser. So important information for your testers to know, and information that you should look at and utilize in developing a strategy. Your test plan structure. Are you going to develop a plan based on an agile approach, based on the requirements? Are you going to do risk analysis? Perhaps you're going to take a look at the impact and the likelihood of a failure occurring and give it a risk score accordingly and then prioritize it. Are you going to take a look at the mobile application demographics? So perhaps we need to prioritize. We know that 90% of our applications users are going to be geographically located in China. Then we might want to prioritize it that way. Or perhaps we're going to use the mobile ecosystem or even other criteria. So just a few ideas that we wanted to share with you when you're looking at your test plan and taking into account all of the different types of testing when it comes to mobile applications. You've got to take a look at install and uninstall. What happens with your application? When it comes to functional performance and even application security. And then there's interrupt testing. What happens when you're in the middle of performing a buy or sell on your E-Trade account and you get a phone call? So again, all criteria and all different types of testing that it is critical that you take that into account when developing your mobile application test plan. So with that being said, at this point, I'm excited to turn things over to Dean, who, as you heard, Dean's been in the industry and in quality assurance for many years, has significant expertise in a number of different solutions. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dean. And Dean, go ahead and take it away, sir.
All right, thank you, Bob. So let's get into a little more of the technical side of things. We're going to be talking about the actual tools that we want to utilize for mobile testing. So strategic solutions. So what we're going to do first of all is take a look at Mobile Center itself. All right, so some of you may not have had a chance to see the application. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll get there in just a minute. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So let's do a more broad approach first. Okay, so ALM, Application Lifecycle Management. Many of you are aware of ALM Quality Center. It's HP's tool for requirements and test management, tracking defects, executing your test, and also collecting those results and then putting together reporting metrics, things like that. HP Sprinter. If you have ALM, you have HP Sprinter. And we'll look in just a minute on how there's actually a Sprinter version for Mobile Center, developed specifically for a Mobile Center. But that tool, Sprinter, allows for what's called interactive testing, so it enhances the manual testing effort. And then there's business process testing, or BPT, and that's simply a component-based approach to testing, and it supports both manual and automated testing via UFT. Again, to go back to UFT, so Unified Functional Testing, there used to be a Quick Test Pro, which was the functional test inside the GUI testing side, and then there was Service Test, which was the API. So that was combined in the UFT. So UFT now supports both functional and API test automation that can be applied to your mobile testing as well. Mobile Center, of course, we'll be getting into more detail on this in just a minute, but it's a device management and real device testing support. Mobile Labs is another application that actually provides a private cloud for your mobile testing. And there's some applications out there, some tools that offer a public cloud for your mobile testing. And it's great in some respects. Some organizations have a challenge with the security side of testing all their data in a public cloud. The Mobile Labs has a solution that offers a private cloud. We'll get into more detail on that in just a minute as well. So ALM, the newest versions of ALM provide cross-project sharing of data and metrics, including reporting, shared reports across multiple ALM projects, and these include graphs, of course. And also it shares assets. So if you have requirements and tests and defects that you can share among multiple projects, there's a way to do that in ALM now as well. I mentioned HP Sprinter, and also it provides standardization in the form of project templates with ALM. So if your organization wants to standardize their testing effort via reporting, test structure, folders for your test sets, requirements, that sort of thing, those can all be combined and created into a template. When you create a project, you pull that template in and create the project from that template. All the user-defined fields are there to support all your standardization as well. Okay. So what if you add mobile testing to the mix and want to utilize ALM? So there's some things you can do to enhance ALM to support your mobile testing. So one of the things that ALM supports and offers is user-defined fields. So you can actually design fields via accessing drop-down lists or just text fields that allow a tester, whether when they're designing a test or executing a test, to make selections. So in one example would be a device. So you can have a user-defined field called device manufacturer and have a list that contains all the manufacturers for the models, operating systems, all those options in a drop-down list. When that test is executed, all that information can be documented for that test execution. And so that way, when you know there's a failure, you can see everything associated with that test run. So it may have failed in an Apple phone, but it may have passed in a Samsung. Okay, so you can track all those metrics via user-defined fields. As far as defects go, you can also create something similar. So the defects allows for list customization. So when you select one item in a list, say the device model, a secondary list will pre-populate with the operating system that you guys are supporting for your application. So those are some of the customizations that can be accomplished. And then there's also a way that you can actually have ALM via scripting in the background that can ping Mobile Center and pull all that information in. And we're looking just at applications, and then you can have ALM via clicking a button, pull that information in from Mobile Center into your field, so you don't have to maintain that list in two different places. So Sprinter again is a tool that supports manual testing. It enhances manual testing. It can interact with objects in the same way that UFT can. It enhances the recording or creation of tests in such a way that as far as exploratory testing, you can hit the record and go through a scenario, maybe unscripted scenario. When you find a defect, it's going to be easy then to reproduce that defect, because Sprinter all along has been tracking your steps, pulling screenshots for every interaction with the application, and tracks the data, all the steps, and then you can actually pull that into a report and send to a developer, or actually include that in a defect that you find as well. Okay. And there's other tools in there. There's data injection, that where if you have a screen where you need to enter a lot of data in all the time, it's kind of redundant, takes time and effort. You can actually design or tell Sprinter to automatically inject that data. And there's a lot more to Sprinter. And just as a note, we'll send these slides out at the end too, so you have all this information. So business process testing, BPT, is a great tool that is in ALM, and it essentially supports a modular design to your manual testing effort and your automation effort. And those modulars are contained in what's called components. So with business process testing, you can have many automated components where even a BA can drag and drop these components into a test. If you look at the image there from right to left, create a test scenario, add the data, and that BA with no technical skills possibly have created an automated test. The same thing can be applied to manual tests. You have manual components. You can create flows and other things around that, and then also HP Sprinter and UFT both can execute BPT tests. And it can be applied, of course, to your manual testing effort as well. I'm sorry, your mobile testing effort. So UFT, I believe it was version 11, included a mobile add-in. So kind of a little technical note, an add-in in UFT allows UFT to communicate and recognize objects using that technology, so in this case, mobile applications. Okay. So with UFT, you can actually develop GUI tests and API tests, testing your applications, and it uses true IntelliSense support, so it's very easy to develop scripts using UFT. And as far as mobile support, it's script once. So you script once against an app or a device, and that test can be executed against multiple devices that are running that same application. And it utilizes a hybrid object approach where both native controls and visual analysis-based controls are supported. So when UFT has to recognize the object. So with the mobile add-in, it recognizes the properties associated with an object, whether it's an edit field or drop-down list. For those objects that are more challenging, it uses a hybrid approach where you can actually apply visual analysis to recognize objects. So there's hardly anything you can't automate with UFT utilizing these two approaches. Mobile Labs is another solution for mobile testing, and like Bob mentioned, we are partners with Mobile Labs. So Mobile Labs contains two parts basically: Device Connect, and that's the private cloud that Mobile Labs offers. So that's that is secured in your building, in your establishment, a locked cabinet, and in there you can add, I believe, 40 or 50 devices connected to a mini Mac. And via Device Connect, you can actually manage and schedule devices to be utilized by different team members, by different teams for testing. So that's a great device management tool as well. And via the Mobile Labs Trust, it extends HP's UFT to real mobile devices. In other words, it provides, again, another add-in for mobile applications to identify those applications. It interacts, or it works right with UFT, and it allows you to execute automated tests and create automated tests using Mobile Labs with UFT. Some of the key benefits: allows testers located anywhere within an enterprise worldwide private infrastructure to easily share pristine mobile devices. So again, it's managing your devices, not just within your office, but within your entire organization with a device housed right in a locked area. Those devices are available 24/7. They're powered constantly. And it minimizes the complexity of managing and tracking mobile devices. And that's one of the biggest challenges is now that we have we want to do testing, how do we manage all these devices? What do we do with them? How do we track who has what and what's being tested where and that sort of thing? Mobile Labs has a great solution for that. So again, the certified add-in to recognize mobile application objects is certified by HP using UFT. Test directly on mobile devices does not require the use of emulators and simulators. And Bob spoke about emulators and simulators earlier, but there's no better way to test your application than on the actual device that you're supporting. If you can do that, that's the best case scenario. Okay. And if you're using test automation with QuickTest Pro UFT, same thing you've learned creating test automation against web applications or SAP, whatever applications you have in-house, all those lessons can be applied to the mobile testing as well. There's no new training that needs to be included in that. Let's take a look at more automation. So here's where we want to look at Mobile Center. So this is a look into Mobile Center after you've logged into Mobile Center. So there's three basic areas of Mobile Center. One is where you manage the application. So what this allows Mobile Center to do is actually recognize and identify applications that you're testing in your organization. And via this interface and connected with UFT, you can actually tell UFT to, every time you run a test, to install the application or invoke the application. So you can make sure you have a pristine condition every time you start an automated test. All right. So via the interface here, you can filter what you view here based on the status or the type of application that is displayed that you have installed. The other area of management are the devices. So as you connect devices to Mobile Center, it'll appear on the device tab, and it'll tell you the status, whether it's available or not available, and whether it's in use. So if it's available, then that can be utilized for testing. If it's not available, somebody is probably creating a test on it, has it locked, doing something, setting something up on there, so it's not available for anybody else to utilize. And in use is when someone is actually running a test against that device. And so those can all be managed here as well. And they also, via the linkage, the integration between UFT and Mobile Center, in UFT, you can actually select what device you're going to record against, and then select what device you're going to execute against as well. So that's all contained in this tab. And then, of course, users. So you can add what users are going to have access to Mobile Center, and assign passwords, keep it secure, of course. All right. So that's the interface in Mobile Center. When it comes to UFT integration with Mobile Center, when you open up UFT, you, of course, have to first load the mobile add-in, and that gives you this tab on the left-hand side. And then click on the mobile, and then you just simply give it a server address, a username and password to connect to Mobile Center. And it's the same interface if you're familiar with UFT. When you connect with ALM, you need to provide the same information. Okay, so via UFT, you can connect to ALM and to Mobile Center, and the two can be integrated together that way. So with Sprinter, so HP came out with a brand new version of Sprinter that supports Mobile Center, and it actually has a few less features only because they just trimmed it down to make it a little more flexible, a little more easier to use. And via Sprinter, you can actually integrate right into Mobile Center. In the same way with UFT, you select what mobile device you want, what application you want to test against. You can then record your tests and actually play your tests back against those different options that you select between device and application. All right. And again, just to mention, again, Sprinter is great for exploratory and interactive testing. So regardless of whether it's a standard web application or any other application, it's phenomenal for exploratory testing on mobile devices as well. If you have ALM, I would recommend playing, at least checking out Sprinter, run it through its paces, see how it works for you. It's a fantastic tool to support manual testing. There are some additional integrations with HP we want to mention, with Mobile Center we want to mention, and one of them is Load Runner. All right, so with Load Runner can integrate into Mobile Center the same way UFT and Sprinter can. Okay, so with Load Runner, you can create and execute performance tests using standard capabilities of Load Runner and Performance Center as well. The mobile device you connect to serves as an additional single user, and that's used to pull back metrics off of that device to see how the interaction with the application and the server is affecting that device itself. And network virtualization. So NV is a solution that actually emulates production environments. And with Mobile Center, with a Mobile Center purchase, you have two network virtualization, what's called flows. So you can actually use up to two different configurations of network virtualization to emulate a real-world environment. So those environments, they would include network conditions, and so you can decide or include different combinations, so 3G, 4G, or Wi-Fi. You can select different carriers that you support that are in your area, and then also you can also combine in kind of simulate when that transaction or when that application is being utilized, whether it's during business hours, which are peak hours. So the network is going to be a little slower, a little harder to get information back and forth. You want to make sure your application doesn't time out or crash because of waiting for something to come back and forth. And then off hours as well. So evening, early morning, things like that, weekends, when there's not a lot of traffic. So using network virtualization integrated with Mobile Center, you're not relegated to just your physical location and those environments that are available. You can simulate profiles and conditions all around the world, actually. Okay? And again, with Mobile Center, you get two instances of network virtualization to utilize for your testing. And in summary, I'll hand this back to Bob.
All right, Dean, thanks. And again, please feel free to ask any questions, submit those, and Dean and I will do our very best to answer all of the questions. So just to summarize what Dean and I have discussed, I shared with all of you some of the challenges, some of the many challenges of mobile application testing in managing devices, users, applications, and most importantly, testing. We talked about the fact that it's so easy to be overwhelmed. There are so many different operators, types of devices, operating systems, and obviously even different types of applications that numerically it's just, again, overwhelming. We shared with you some discussion about emulation versus simulation, but both Dean and I emphasized that the best situation is when you can perform your validation on real-world devices. And it's very easy and it can be very chaotic. It is so important to create a test plan. We shared some mobile test planning strategies. You can create a design based upon risk analysis on the mobile ecosystem. You can do it, geographically based on your different priorities. Looking at where are your users actually physically located, and that may very well impact the prioritization of your test plan and which devices you test on first. And then Dean, you covered a few things.
Yes, so when it comes to mobile application test automation, we looked at unified functional tests, load runner, and performance center, integrated into mobile center. And if your organization is not utilizing test automation as one of your primary solutions to your testing, like Bob mentioned earlier, that's a passion of ours, is test automation. When done properly, it can add tremendous, tremendous benefit to your organization. We looked at mobile device management, so internal, public cloud, and private cloud. So internal, that would come under mobile center. So it's an internal device management solution. There's public cloud offerings that we didn't get into in this particular webinar. And the private cloud offered by Mobile Labs allows you to create a private cloud inside your organization that you can manage and maintain and secure within your organization.
So now for a few questions and hopefully answers that Dean and I can share with you. We've got a few great questions coming in. So Dean, we've got a few here directly for you. Does Mobile Center allow different types of users to be added?
So good question. Right now it does not. So if you're familiar with ALM Quality Center, you can assign different roles to different users. Right now with Mobile Center, there's only one role, and that's an admin role. Coming down the pike, and I think I can say this in the webinar now, so there's a right now it's a 1.1 version out for Mobile Center. Sometime this fall, and I'll be that general, this fall, there's a 1.5 coming out, and one of those enhancements is likely to be different user credentials that you can assign a user into Mobile Center. And there's many, many other enhancements coming along with the next version.
Great, great. Another question, if there are only 3 USB ports on the server, how would I connect more devices without having to disconnect a device?
So that's another good question, and that comes with the internal device management. So Mobile Center does not have a device management solution like Mobile Labs has. So each device has to be connected to the server via a USB cable. So what HP recommends is using a powered hub and a USB 3 hub. And those are available. You can get 6 ports to a hub for $20 or $30 just about anywhere. And each USB can support a hub, a powered hub. So that way you're not overwhelming your system. There's power being supplied to the devices through the powered hub as well. So that's that would be the solution for that. So yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
Sure, sure. And then here's a question which I'll field. Mobile Labs, does it work only with the HP solutions? No, actually, so Mobile Lab is the company, just to clarify. And then the 2 solutions of Mobile Lab that Dean discussed were Device Connect and Trust Software. So they do have integration, as Dean mentioned, with HP UFT, but they also integrate with Selenium. So just to answer that question. And then also there was a question, Mobile Labs, as I mentioned, is their own company, and their solutions integrate with the HP software solutions. So Dean, here's another question for you around Mobile Center. Does the Object SPY in UFT work with Mobile Center?
Right, so the first instance of Mobile Center had some limited capabilities when it came to UFT integrated into Mobile Center. So one of the challenges was the object spy. So if you don't know what the object spy is, it allows you to see inside the objects. What are the properties of the object? In the first 1.0 release of Mobile Center, that capability did not exist. It now does. So every release is adding better capability, and that's one of the big enhancements for 1.1. So that was from an automation engineer, I would imagine, right?
Right, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was.
Right.
So here's another question, and Dean, I'll be more than happy to take this one. Do I need Mobile Center to use Device Connect with UFT? No. Actually, Mobile Center can certainly is used without Device Connect. It's its own mobile solution, very robust. So, Dean and I and our organization would be more than happy to answer any questions you might have specifically around Mobile Center or any of the solutions that we've discussed. And then we have another question here regarding just mobile application testing. Typically, how many devices do you see organizations test with? So I'll share my experience, and then Dean, if you want to give your thoughts on that. So typically, I've seen anywhere from 10 to 16 devices being the norm. The most I've ever seen in any one mobile application lab was right around 30 to 32 different devices. This organization was creating mobile applications utilized globally. So they realized that their users were pretty evenly dispersed when it came to the types of devices they were using throughout the world, whether it was Nokia, Samsung, Apple, etc. So Dean, what about you? What have you typically seen?
I've seen the same, Bob, and what we find out are organizations have to make that decision internally. So some of the criteria are how many resources do we have to test our mobile application? Do we have enough to test 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12? What are we officially supporting in our applications? If we're using automation, then you can increase the number of devices because it runs quicker without a resource watching it. So there's a number of criteria, but once you get past half a dozen, or it depends on the size of your organization, but you better have a really good device management plan in place. If you're not using something like mobile labs, where everything's locked in a cabinet and assigned virtually through an application, it's very common to have devices disappear and just drop off the face of the earth. Nobody has a clue what happened to them. So those are some of the criteria you have to consider when you're deciding how many applications or how many devices to test.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Here's another great question directed to me. What is the standard time to build, test, launch, and how much time to plan? So that's a great question. It's, I remember back in my DB2 COBOL days, we would typically have anywhere from 6 to 18 months to build, if you will, to design and actually develop the different applications, and then we were given perhaps 1 to 2 months to test. Now it seems as though with all of the different development solutions, especially in the web world, it actually seems to be a lot faster to develop these days. So when it comes to mobile applications, just so much of it depends on whether or not you're talking about a mobile web application, whether or not it's going to be a native app or a hybrid. So typically to build it and then test and launch, you would typically be talking about anywhere from 6 to 12 months. And then how much time to plan? I would say the norm that I see to truly plan it out would be anywhere from 2 to 4 months to develop a very, very solid test plan. You can certainly do it in less time than that, and you can certainly be conducting testing as you go, by all means. So almost implementing a bit of an agile process as you go. But, do remember that your test plan is a work in process. I remember the term living document used to be very popular. but your test plan is going to evolve, so it's never truly finished. It's more of a journey, not so much a destination.
Absolutely.
All right, and Dean, that looks like it's it for the questions today. I want to thank our audience very, very much. We're going to leave the webinar open, excuse me, and there's going to be a survey, but during that time, please feel free to submit any other questions. Dean and I will answer them and get those out to you. And then the recording of this webinar will be sent to all of you. Please feel free to contact myself or Dean Carvin anytime with any questions or thoughts that you may have. We're always looking to improve our webinars. You'll see our office phone numbers as well as our email addresses up there on the screen. And again, please do take the survey as it closes out. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Bob Cruz. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye now.